All right, we're going to start back up. If you didn't get any cake, there's still plenty up there. But we're going to keep going with our presentations to the board, and Mr. Colabufo is going to report in on the superintendent's goals.
This is all here. Nothing.
I love my boy. All right, so what we have right here, the 2017-18 superintendent goals. And again, I don't really like to refer to them as the superintendent goals because then the staff thinks those are Tom Calabufo's goals. Yes, for the purposes of this presentation, that is true, but they are the district's goals. And we looked at that. The district goals are really divided among 4 different categories. And those 4 categories are, the first one is to increase instructional engagement. The second one is fiscal responsibility, and all the decisions that we do are aligned. The board has done a fantastic job in doing that and supporting us as we look to support students and program. And to do that, we just want to continue to be creative. The third one is be 21st century citizenship. And that is everything it encompasses in that, such as our graduation rate, students' reading levels, attendance, behavior referrals, suspensions, and whatnot. All really fits into that. The fourth goal is a partnership to strengthen the partnership between the district and the community. So those 4 those are the goals that there are district's goals. It's not superintendent goals. But as you can see, this is what I'm doing as superintendent to kind of oversee this. So again, I like to lead off this presentation with our mission statement, because that is our main focus, and that's to empower all students to excel as citizens in a changing world. Goal number 1, again, as I had said, to increase instructional engagement. So the first part is by having building and district level administration observe differentiated instruction in practice and offer actionable feedback. Second part of this is by providing technology professional development to staff and by restructuring aspects of the technology department and its offerings. Those 2 things are a huge lift right now, but again, it's part of our total focus on making sure that we're aligning our systems and structures that all students can benefit from. So when we talk about differentiated instruction, something that we started 2 years ago, actually last year was when we really got it going, was making sure that we had a common language across the district. So if I were over at Brewerton and we asked the teacher, what does differentiated instruction mean? We would get a similar response as if we asked somebody from A.A. Cole or from Millard Hawk or from Hastings or from the middle school or from the high school. And it's really important because if we don't have a common understanding of what that means, we're going to have people just doing a bunch of different things. And we wanted to really have clear expectations for our staff, teachers, administration, teaching assistants, everybody that falls into this. So we adopted the leader in differentiated instruction, Dr. Carol Ann Tomlinson's definition, and that is differentiation is a teacher's response to learners' needs, guided by mindset and general principles of differentiation. Teachers can differentiate through content, process, product, and the learning environment according to students' readiness, interest, and learning profile. So differentiated instruction, you would often hear us refer to as the C-squared 2018 plan. When you look at that, the big umbrella that all of that fits under, and just good teaching fits under, is differentiated instruction. The part when it says readiness, that's huge, and any teacher when planning a lesson totally understands that you have higher level students, middle-level learners, and then students that struggle a bit and need different approaches and different scaffolded supports to be able to be successful independently. And so when doing that, teachers are doing a wonderful job right now preparing lessons, knowing that there's different readiness levels in the classroom. So we really like this definition. I'm thrilled to be able to get into the buildings and hear reports from the principals and from Connie and Aaron that we're seeing it. Now, are we totally there? Absolutely not. But again, it's not a gotcha moment for our staff. This is a process. So how are we progress monitoring a huge part of our C-squared plan, which is differentiation? So we have learning, district-wide learning walks, and it's by C-squared 2018 committee members, and it's done 2 to 3 times throughout the year, and it's pretty extensive. And going into a building and hitting like between 20 to 30 classrooms to really be able to see if teachers are planning lessons that either accommodate students' readiness levels or interests or their learning styles. And again, we really feel that school districts that embrace differentiated instruction see a far less amount of behavioral referrals, and you're always going to get those outlier students in any district I've ever worked for that when they get a suspension, they earn that suspension, and they need to be held accountable. There's no doubt about that. But then there are students that just kind of aren't engaged. And so again, this is our constant effort to make sure that we're preparing lessons that actually do engage students in the readiness level, interests, and learning styles. So that first one is something that we do for progress monitoring. I will say this, and it's not a knock on other districts that I've worked for, but oftentimes schools have great mission statements and they have great strategic plans, and it's on paper, but the fact that what's the actual follow-through and how is it progress monitored? In the business world, there's constant progress monitoring going on. It's just a part of life. Whether it's in sales, whatever field it's in, there's just a heightened sense of accountability, because how a company does, whether they are successful or not, again, it's progress monitoring. If it's not, changes need to be made. It's really no different in education system. The next part is each principal is using a 4P strategy for effective feedback regarding differentiated instruction. A couple of principals have kind of changed their 4Ps a little bit, but it really stays true to the 4Ps. And that is, this right here is great. I don't care what field you're working, when you have to provide feedback to somebody, the first thing that you want to do is provide evidence. I do this when I meet with the principals, because this district is kind of unique, and I actually really like the fact that I'm the only one that can formally observe 90% worth of the principal's APPR. So in order to be able to do that, I need to actually go to that lesson that the teacher is teaching, that the principal or assistant principal is observing, because when I go to observe the principal or assistant principal, the administrator, giving the post-observation, if I wasn't at the actual lesson, then I wouldn't know what missed opportunities could have been given or whatnot. So I'm delighted now when I see this. I see principals with the teachers, and the first thing they do is they provide evidence. Again, this is the real world. When you go to the doctor's office, the first thing that you do, they make you do what? What do you guys think? Mr. Martin, the nurse says, stand on that.
The scale.
It's a scale. So if the nurse was never going to start off by saying to somebody, you're grossly obese. They just don't do that. They say, stand on that scale. And then they give you a couple other measures of data and whatnot. So really all that is providing evidence of things that are seen. Things that could be perceived as being good, excellent. They asked 45 plus questions, and it was dispersed among, 20 of the kids in class. That's evidence right there. If it was 5 minutes in transition between one activity to the next activity, that's evidence, but then the teacher can look at that and say, oh, maybe I wasn't as prepared, or this or that. And then it's not a gotcha moment. It's just, what can we do to be more efficient? And then the third part is posing questions. So what type of questions can the administrators pose that the teachers can then further reflect on? And in some cases, in most cases, this is a benefit to the teacher, because New York State, the way that they have worked out the APPR, is anything can be part of their evaluation as long as it's part of the entire observation cycle, which is the pre-observation if it's a newer teacher, or if it's a veteran teacher that asks for a pre-observation, the actual observation and the post-observation. So if I was a principal, and when I was a principal, I used the 4 Ps, I would say, I noticed that you had students grouped in groups. You had students in groups. Can you tell me, why did you group them the way that you did? And then the teacher could think about that and say, well, the lesson before this, the day before when we were doing math or ELA, whatnot, I did an activity, and that activity gave me an assessment to be able to determine the readiness levels. So again, the evaluator would never have seen that, but because the teacher was able to work that in, because it directly impacted something that was observed, that by posing those questions, it's a really great way to have a teacher reflect on their practice. And then the last one is propose. So these are things that if it's a lesson that kind of lends a certain strategy or tool, this is when the administrator can say, you know what, that was great. You can get further collaboration or creativity or student involvement, student engagement if you try this. And our whole thing is not a gotcha moment. It's providing more tools and strategies. And when I was a teacher and my principal said, Tom, you're doing a great job with this and this, but if you want to increase the level of rigor for reading, and I taught 8th grade social studies, you may think about this compare and contrast strategy, and it was great. And they gave me tools and strategies. I was never offended by it because my goal was always give me more tools and strategies. So those 4 Ps for effective feedback is going to play a key role with our differentiated instruction. Goal 2, to implement sound fiscal practices to support student learning and overall management of the district. Now, originally, my goals to the board, I think it was like 7 pages long. So a couple of the board members that have been on the board for a while said, this is good, but you got to kind of streamline. So when I show you these goals, I don't want you to think that we're not doing anything else to support fiscal responsibility. These are 3 big ones that we pulled out. By ensuring expenditures support our district goals. Number 2, by successfully implementing elements of the TAS, that's the Transportation Advisory Study, Service Study. I'm going to touch upon these briefly. And then by successfully completing implementation of the district's move to the healthcare cooperative. And again, it's working very closely with Maureen on this as we move to get everybody involved, because all bargaining units have to go into this. We can't have the teachers union and the TAs and then not the non-instructionals. So to do that, they're asked for open negotiations for their contracts, so we've been working really hard, and I feel really confident because it is such a better plan for them. So again, just looking at the first bullet, just to kind of go a little bit deeper, ensuring expenditures support our district goals. We restructuring of administrative positions. So again, we eliminated 2 actual principal positions at the middle school and replaced that with an administrative intern that's going to change yearly. It's a win-win. We have teachers that really want to be able to have a really good internship, and so this allows them. My first administrative role was I was the assistant principal at Oneida High School, but that was also my internship, and it was huge. So that's great right there, and it's great cost savings for the district. And I will say Carol Skosha is already doing a phenomenal job in the middle school. Also, we have eliminated the 2 principal positions besides the dean position. The internship. We actually have a full-on assistant principal at the middle school as well, and that is with Jennifer Smolnick. We eliminated an elementary position with the consolidation and the fact that our elementary principal, Stacy Eager, got the assistant superintendent position at Watertown School District. That allowed us, and again, with salary benefits, another $150,000 savings. So in doing that, we looked at our specific needs across the district, and me just kind of taking a pulse from the board, who's been a lot of the board members, whether they were on the board or just in their role as parent in the community, know that the dean position was something that was kind of looked at very favorably, especially when we had eliminated, we used to have 3, not that long ago, a couple of years back, we had 3 assistant principal positions at the high school, and then when one of our assistant principals got a job in another district, we eliminated that position. But we realized that there were still a lot of administrative roles and responsibilities that needed We needed to support Jeff King and his administration at the high school, and the dean position seemed like a perfect opportunity to do that. Somebody, and we just wanted to make sure that we found somebody that's really good with students, that's firm, fair, and just has a great rapport with them. And we did that, and Damon Villeneuve was appointed at the last board meeting. So we're really excited about that, as the date was bumped up earlier for him, which I believe is a November 6th start. That was contingent upon getting his replacement to go into his business, because again, we were always thinking what's smoothest for the students. The other position was the Director of Student Supports and Interventions. The board has also recognized the need for mental health throughout the district. Student board member last year had mentioned how it was important that we look. This is something that they noticed was a big deal among the students, and so we did. We acted upon that. This person right here is Jen DiBianco. Her home base is the Paul V. Moore High School, but she oversees the Red Hawk program and as well as transition program, and that's huge right there, not only because it's making a difference, letting a lot of students feel that they're reconnected to a district that they didn't feel connected to for whatever reasons, whether it, say with the transitions program, they could have been out for anxiety, depression, death in the family, that again, everything snowballed, but now we have them back in our school. This is also students that are suspended, rather than a board member had we didn't want to incentivize it by having this like the 3 to 5 program. So this is, I believe, 7:30 to 10:30 in the morning, and it's fantastic. We have students that have already far better attendance in just September and October than they had their entire time at Central Square, straight through. The Red Hawk program is fantastic, and the people that Connie Galvan and Jeff King and Jen DiBianco selected to teach this program have been great. And so, again, that program, we're not going to get too deep into that right now, but we can just simply say students that were put into this year, it was 9th grade. And again, we're looking at their better attendance, we're looking at better grades, just an overall connection to the school. And engagement, as you know, is always our focus. Continued examples is part of this, again, where the capital projects are in full swing with the meetings. So we're regularly meeting with King & King and Turner Construction. There's different things that pop up that we got to, again, make decisions that we feel are in the best interest of the district. Negotiation of 9 bargaining unit contracts, as I had said, and the only way that we can get them all to go into the Central New York Healthcare Consortium is they all have to go in. We have several non-instructional units that this is the last year of their contract, so they've asked now to open them as part of the negotiations and moving in, and we're doing that, and both sides are negotiating in good faith, and I really see a good ending there. Long-term plan for Central Square Intermediate School as a swing space if it's not leased by City BOCES beyond 2017-18. Again, Chris Todd is going to be coming into executive session on November 6th to, again, discuss this. The reason why it is executive session, it's the sale or lease of a building that we don't have the sale or lease yet. We have it through 17-18. So for that reason, that's why that would be an executive session, to be able to discuss what his intentions are, and that's when we can share what our intentions are. For anybody watching this, if you're wondering the whole idea of a swing space, I've worked in districts before where the construction went on several years because doing things piece by piece. If we could literally have that school and get, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade can move back into it while we are doing construction, let's say at Millard Hawk, because Millard Hawk has significant amount of work that needs to be done as part of the capital project. We've got a space that we can do that, because our goal is least disruption to the learning environment. Successfully implementing elements of the transportation study. So all of you have in front of you the executive summary. There are things that we have been looking at. A is a way, again, going back to goal 2, is the fiduciary responsibility of the district to making sure that we're always working efficiently. But there's things that they put on here, like we know that it's not a secret that we have a shortage of drivers for subs. So we are absolutely looking to increase the pay, which was is a recommendation from the TAS study about paying subs more as a way to be able to get them here. And there's other things as well that we're going to be looking. And I'm not going to go too far into this because when John Pierce, our transportation supervisor, he's actually going to be doing a report on this executive summary. Successfully completing implementation of the district's move to the healthcare co-op. Again, as I had already mentioned, don't have to spend a lot of time on it. Every unit must agree. We've already started presentations and clarifications regarding this change. The first one was that Friday or last Thursday? We had Stephen Losey, the 10th and the 17th of October. So the last one was over at Millard Hawk, and there was a pretty good crowd of teachers, TAs, drivers, some maintenance workers, and they just had questions regarding this. Everything I've looked at, again, it's a substantial savings for the district, but it's also a substantial savings for the workers regarding the rates. Another thing, Maureen is reaching out to a retiree group that consists of about 52 people and explaining what the change is for them, but also better options that they have. And again, not getting in the weeds with it here, but we're doing everything we can to provide any type of clarification, question and answers and whatnot, just to show everybody that this is a better deal for the district, but also for them. The negotiation, as I said, of the 9 remaining bargaining units, and we're doing that now. Goal 3, to provide an atmosphere that promotes 21st century citizenship for all by focusing on programs and opportunities to increase awareness of mental health and the facts that impact it, by increasing rates of attendance, graduation, and academically successful special education students as recognized by the State Education Department, and by utilizing progressive discipline in an effective manner. So again, focusing on the first part, use of our Director of Student Support Services and Interventions, district-wide, to support students and families, staff on mental illness. Jen DiBianco, she hit the ground running. She's been a very valuable resource for the district. She's been down at some of our elementaries. When I was an elementary principal, we had some of these outlier students that unfortunately they've been through some very traumatic experiences in their lives, resulting special needs that they have. So she's been great with talking to them, with talking to the council, or the school psychologists at the elementary, the principals, and then local agencies to be able to direct them in the right direction. Because if we don't do early intervention, then unfortunately what we see is a lot of these students end up becoming major behavior problems as they feel that there's, it's just a gradual, problem for them. So we're really not only looking at the high school, but we're looking at what we can do down in the earlier grades for not only the student, but their families. Refocusing of the Paul V. Moore Counseling Department to align with their skill sets and training. So there was a meeting that we had with the counselors and with the school psychs, with Jeff King, with Connie, and myself. And part of this meeting was to really discuss what are the things that they have on the table that is maybe preventing them from actually being able to maximize the skill sets and the training, the experience that they have as counselors, because the counselors are the ones that are most trained to deal with students in special needs, not students with disabilities, not the special ed population, but all the students like mental illness and all of that. And we realized that there were a handful of things that kind of were assigned to them, and I just kind of figured that might be because we had eliminated one of the assistant principal positions. So out of that meeting resulted in several meetings that I had with Jeff King and Connie Galvan, and that was the dean position. So the counselors can be able to, when students come down, they're able to spend more time with students doing what they've been trained best to do. Jeff is still working with them and exactly what this is going to look like for the counseling department, but there is going to be a change. The next is the Suicide Prevention Task Force. So we have a teacher that sits on that, Nicole Heath, and Jen DiBianco. That's regional. So they are bringing back very useful stuff. You're going to see is in the next goal that this is actually, I want this to be a district-wide committee. And I want some parents to sit on this. There should be students to sit on this. I would love it if some board members sat on this. Unfortunately, and this information was given by City BOCES, and it has been proven accurate, Oswego County is #1 in suicide in the entire state of New York. So in looking at that, we have a problem there, because it's not just the students that are doing this, but they are affected by friends, family, and whatnot. So it is a definite need, and that committee, I believe, is going to be able to come up with some really good information, tools, and strategies for our students in greater community. Utilization of county, state, federal resources to provide additional supports. Example, Farnham Family Services have operated in our middle school last year, and Connie and middle school administration have done a really good job utilizing the Farnham workers as part of, let's say, a student was suspended for a drug or alcohol or other related things. Then we realize that other things kind of pop up as a result of that. And some of these students, and I'm very happy to announce that they themselves choose to stay on longer than what was just required of them, because such a great connection with the social worker from Farnham. So again, any resources that are out there, we want to put to our families. And that's why Jen DiBianco's position as the Director of Student Supports Interventions is just so crucial. Increasing rates of attendance, graduation, academically successful special education students as recognized by the State Ed Department. So attendance, again, increasing engagement resulting from the Red Hawk and Transition program, but we also feel that our continuous focus on differentiated instruction and making sure that all staff members are planning lessons to really touch upon someone's readiness, interest, or learning styles. Not all three, but at least one of them that's going to increase the level of engagement for our students. Graduation rate, focus of progressive discipline policy, commitment to differentiated instruction, exploration of many colleges and or career pathways. Again, it's unofficial right now, but Jeff, doing the math and whatnot, feels that it could be 91%. I obviously can't announce that as a graduation rate, which would be up 6% until it becomes official, but I can just say that I'm delighted at the stuff that Jeff King has been doing, what Connie has been doing, working with Jeff, with Jeff's administration, and what the teachers have been doing. It's been great. I really feel that, especially when I walk across the hall from my office and I see the Red Hawk, I see the transition program in effect, and I see that these kids are here and that they're engaged. And it's just it's a testament to the hard work going on. Quality improvement. Okay, so the quality improvement process is the QUIP. We are on the watch list, and this is the regarding our students with disabilities and their success rate on 3 through 8 testing and the Regents exams in the high school. And they were faring very low comparable to other districts in the region. So our implementation of strategies to improve the outcomes for students with disabilities. Goal 4, finally, to foster a partnership between the district and the community by promoting district unity across all ages, demographics, and geographies through outreach in meetings and communications, by allowing community service programs and volunteer hours to specific community needs. That alignment is going to be crucial. I go to many meetings, whether it's with the Lions or Lioness, whether it's the VFW, whether it's with American Legion or with the Fort Brewerton Chamber of Commerce, and there are specific needs that are in our community, and I think we know that we have a significant number of students that are required to have community service hours, or volunteer hours. It just seems that I want to make sure, and they do a really good job, that the staff members that have been doing this, but again, we can always look to see what that need is. By moving beyond outreach and engaging community in district committees in the development of the Central Square Schools graduate profile. First one, for communications and meetings, we have School Tool, which is the student management system. It kind of puts everything together and allows us to be able to generate great information regarding our students. School Messenger. Every district that's ever implemented School Messenger, when I was at Oneida and when I was at ESM, you have to work the kinks out. We have to try to get full saturation to get all parents involved in getting that, because the great part about School Messengers is these automated blasts for whatever reason. You could have a bus that had gotten an accident, all kids are fine, but it's delayed 30 or 40 minutes. It goes out. It can be blasted out really at a high level saying all students that were on such and such bus number, and that goes out to everybody, are fine but delayed. Or it can be even drilled down to just the emails of the parents on the kids on that specific bus get that. So in a day and age where communication home to parents and the need for immediate communication is so crucial, School Messenger does a great job. And I will say we had a parent call in and thank us because the student was marked as truant. The automated call went home. It was discovered that the child was actually involved in a car accident, was okay, but the parent would never even have known that if it wasn't for that. And we also have parents where their students are truant, which means they should be in school, no reason that they're not. And the parents love that because they found their kid and they brought that kid into school. That's great. It's great to have that tool. Also, that's a good way that we're looking at our food services to not shame students. We're not doing that. Some districts, when the kid goes through the line, they could say, here's a ticket, you owe such and such amount of money, and that can become very embarrassing for students. So now we're working on it, and that part's almost ready to go, where it would send a blast out to that parent and say, your child, your balance is below a certain amount. Then nobody else knows, it just goes to that parent. So there's creative ways. It's 2017. Communication across the world has increased. We're just looking to make sure that we're staying up with that. The district's Facebook page, again, Heather Shush has done an amazing job with that. Bless you. The district's website, it's got a fresh look, but we know that there is information on there that is constantly, being updated now. But that's still a process, and I would say it's probably going to be into December that all of that stuff that is discovered, that is outdated, is being removed from that. Feedback with the superintendent, AM, PM sessions. I wish I could get some more. I do a 7 a.m. and I do a 6 p.m. and it's like every other month. We've got them spread out. But again, with that, I realize people have lives. And again, even though the participation is really low with that, I always have a parent that will catch me at a football game or this and that, want to run some things by me. So I am approachable, even though I don't have a lot of participation in those morning and afternoon sessions. Superintendent parent council meetings, I have one, I believe, tomorrow. Correct, Pearl? And this is a great way to sit with all of the PTO presidents, which is great because last week I had the Chamber of Commerce dinner meeting, and it had come up, and I want to say this live for anybody that's watching this, that we have these local businesses that do so much to support our students, whether it's fundraising for sports boosters and music boosters, but they donate a significant amount of money in this, and they're never turning down people. But it was then brought to my attention by the PTO roundtable, but also by the actual businesses themselves, that it's kind of disheartening when they're donating this, and then when people are going to order shirts or signs, and they go from outside of, or they have their banquets from outside of Central Square. I can't really tell coaches and this and that, hey, it's got to be within Central Square. But if our goal, the way it is a relationship that it's mutually beneficial, that the district and the local businesses work together, because the success of one affects the success of the other. So I buy stuff in Central Square. I get my gas always in Central Square. I'm at the Central Square, different for pizza, for all the places I buy food. I buy Pearl flowers at Central Square, Leaf and Stem, shout out. So, it's true. So again, think local when we're doing that. Also, staff members have been using Twitter for educational purposes, and it's fantastic to see that. I've had parents comment on how much they like to see that. Again, better aligning community service hours with that. Again, these are the different clubs that I have been meeting with regularly, and they're telling me specific needs, and I want to link that to our advisors regarding those community hours. To invite students, parents, local business owners to participate in the following district-wide committees. So we are going to be having board members sit on some of these. We are also going to be extending that out to parents, local business owners / workers in the community, and that is the College and Career Readiness Committee. We already have 10 staff members, teachers, administrators, going to ESM. We've been invited to see their College and Career Readiness Committee meeting, and they have people from Siemens. We're going to have people from Siemens. We both participated in the same energy performance survey. We also can benefit from the fact that Siemens has lots of money set aside for educational purposes. A lot of districts take advantage of that at no cost. They have admissions officers from Syracuse University, from Lemoyne, from SUNY Oswego, and they have students in there, they have parents, they have teachers and whatnot. So our outcome of that first committee is going to be, what are the attributes of a Central Square graduate? What better to forge that than the actual having some students in there, teachers, parents, and community members that have their own businesses that know what specific skills. We're also going to have people from Hudamaki, the Fulton companies, and several other companies that are also part of PTech that are local, they have jobs that pay $80,000 a year and they can't fill them. Technology committee, that's again district-wide committee. We have some board members again with some great expertise with technology that we think that's going to be a great resource for the district. But again, parents, community members, and that's going to be great. And then the mental health task force committee. Questions? No? Fantastic. All right.
I just have a question if nobody else does. So goal number 1, increase instructional engagement. So are you saying that you're going to have administrators just kind of watch for differentiated instruction, and then teachers that have that knowledge are kind of be ahead of the teachers that don't have that knowledge?
You need to be ahead of that.
So like, I think, so 10 years ago, 20 years ago, differentiated instruction was, I was in 6th grade and I would go to a classroom, right? All the people that were in that higher level would go to one classroom, the lower level would go to another classroom. That's kind of the same thing, isn't it? It's just that it's, instead of differentiated in one classroom, you're across several classrooms.
No, that would be tracking. So differentiation is that the teacher plans the lesson knowing that they're going to have the higher level, they're going to have the middle, and they're going to have the struggling students that are in there. But it doesn't have to be that severe. So if you were to ask our teachers, let's say in some of our top classes, that the students that normally it's the cream of the crop students that are in the specific class, even within that group, you still have higher level students, and you have some middle level students, and you have some students that struggle regarding that. So differentiation, or what are the tools and strategies that we're providing teachers to be able to utilize that will encompass students' readiness level, interest, and learning styles.
So something that used to be allowed is now called tracking then?
Well, that is tracking. The very definition of taking a student saying that's going to be A1, that's going to be A2, and that's going to be like our A3 students. Mm-hmm. And the reason for that is when you break down the standards, you could have a student that scores really high in one of the standards, let's say in ELA, but struggles in another one. And then is really high, invite in other students that are really high and then struggles in another one. So as a result of that, it's making sure that we differentiate for all the students in the room.
Okay. And the other thing I'd like to understand is, was this just the administration that kind of came up with these goals? Like what was...
First 3 goals have been the 3 goals in this district for years.
Okay.
Word for word. Instructional engagement, fiscal responsibility.
Just different bullets?
Exactly. So what we're doing is we're just trying to align all of those to say, okay, what are we doing district-wide? Because what used to happen here, and it happens in most districts, especially ones that spread out, we're 200 square miles of the district. What you have happening in some elementary buildings is different than what you have going on in another elementary building. So it's to kind of build a consistency. It's kind of like reliability, that what goes on in this room should be pretty much what goes on in this room, given the fact that it's a teacher's craft. Again, I don't want to publicly knock the modules, but when the district adopted the modules all in, I believe that it stifled a lot of creativity that the teachers had, and we're trying to get that back. One of our things that I think you'd be interested in knowing, Phil, is that Aaron has been working really hard with the elementary principals and with teachers in looking at an overhaul of what the elementary curriculum is going to be. So it's taking best things from the modules, taking best things from CKLA, and just other great research practices that have been going on in districts that have been proven very successful, and then putting that as our district curriculum to support the standards, which is the...
I just have a couple comments, Tom. Obviously, some good stuff there. My comments are, just with graduations and rates, as I've said before, I want to make sure we're not just getting the numbers up for the wrong reason. For example, the illustrious John King, way back when, put out numbers. He wanted graduation rates, right, go up in the state. Well, guess what? They went up. Did they go up for the right reasons? I happen to believe no. But he was able to go out there and say, see this? So I want to make sure we're not doing that. We're not putting people across the stage that really don't quite honestly deserve to be put across the stage. The second question I have is, special ed students, are they held to the same readings as a general student?
Well, and they are, unless there's something put in there where they don't take, what's the term for it? What's that? It is the safety net, but what they take. No, it's the exams that they take. The alternate assessment, thanks. So the majority of our special ed students, yes, absolutely do have to take the Regents exams.
So this state believes a special ed student should be passing the same exam as my daughter. Fair statement?
Yes, and it's a broad statement in the fact that if you looked at some of our students, let's say a student with autism, we've had students with autism that got 95 on the integrated algebra. So it's hard to tease that out and say, well, because you have an IEP, then you don't have to take, when some students are phenomenal. We had a student with Down syndrome get a B+ on a math exam, a Regents exam. So we're very careful in not saying, well, because you fit into this, then you're not required to take it. We don't want to do that. But yes, I mean, I hear what you're saying. There are very strict from the state.
So is it passing the Regents that's put us on a watch list for special ed?
It's a combination of that and 3 through 8 testing.
Okay.
Yep.
And I just want to piggyback on that. So at the New York State School Board Convention, several of the proposals and resolutions were around exactly what you're talking about, that, at the makeup of the School Board Association doesn't feel that the state is taking into account accommodations that we feel ought to be made in those.
That was discussed, and that is...
It was.
They're lobbying the state for it.
Okay.
The state's not listening.
Okay.
Right.
And my last, it's not a secret where I stand on this. I think, to Phil's point, and I just like to publicly state it once in a while, I know it's not politically correct, and I get that, but I believe for many, many years in public ed, for the lack of a better term, tracking worked pretty well. And I know we don't do it now, and I think it is because we can't, but I do talk to a ton of students at lower levels that get frustrated with higher kids in their class. And that to me is just, I guess most people could say is anecdotal, but I talk to a ton of them, and they're like, how the heck, they say a little worse than that, do you expect me to perform? Now, I get what we're trying to do, but there is that frustration that we shouldn't minimize and not look and really evaluate on that side. That's all.
No, I totally understand. To a degree, we kind of do in the fact that, we offer SUPA courses, and we offer some higher level courses that some students, when you just see the makeup and you see what their track record academically, it's different. We have some classes where some students don't have, when they look at the students that are in their class, their group, it's the same students. So in a way, you can say by doing that, it's a form of tracking, but I totally understand what you're saying. And you're definitely not alone in those thoughts.
Absolutely. And do we have will we ever have any data on, I think this tool that we're using to tell people they're not there or they're absent truant?
School tool?
Yeah.
School Messenger.
School Messenger. Do we have any anecdotal thoughts that that's getting kids into school more?
Well, I can tell you, parents have actually reached out and said, and we just got this up and running, and they said, thank you so much, and they brought their kids in. So already we're starting to see.
Anecdotally, there's been some of that.
Absolutely.
Had they not had that communication, that child would have missed that day of school.
Absolutely. And the parent said, normally we're just used to finding out later. I love getting this call immediately for a number of reasons. Students shouldn't be home right now unaccompanied. God knows what they can get up to in today's day and age. That's not a Central Square thing. That's just a high school or middle school or elementary thing in general. But yeah, they love that immediate message that gets out to them.
As I do, and I hope it works swimmingly. So thank you. Thank you for your time.
Yep, I got what, Tom, I just want to thank you and applaud the effort of coming up with the your goals with this, strategic plan. I think it gives the blueprint of what has to, and what everybody's going to be working on. And it's a lot of work. And I understand that I've been involved with it before. And I just want to give you a big thank you. It's all good stuff.
Oh, again, the people sitting at the table right here, but then all the principals and all the teachers, they're really behind this. So that's great.
So just a comment and one question. Comment is simply for the board and for you, but as I look through it, there's many areas in here where we as a board, I would think in the coming year you're not going to achieve these unless we address some policy things, I think, or have the opportunity to address. So as the board, I just want us all to understand that we have a part in this as well, and obviously you'll bubble those up. But my question would simply be, when you think about, there's a lot in here, obviously, but is there an area that causes you severe angst compared to everything else, or is it just spread across everything? Meaning, I'm confident you're going to achieve the goals.
Yeah.
But is there an area that concerns you more than the others?
Well, there's one thing that always comes up that I see more and more in talking with Jeff and Connie. We do have some we practice progressive discipline, but we've had some students, and I got to tell you, it seems to be more the pattern is with our female high school students, just really violent behavior. And so again, that's where somebody like Damon Villeneuve, sorry, Damon, does a phenomenal job connecting with them and parents, but holding them accountable. And I want everyone to know, progressive discipline doesn't mean that you stop suspending kids. Right. There are kids that should be suspended. And to Tim's point, there are students that shouldn't be walking the stage, because where are we actually sending them? And that was a stat that was talked about at City BOCES, was as a county, how many students starting 2-year, starting 4-year aren't making it. And some of it was for mental illness. Some of it, there's a whole bunch of factors that go in there. But to Tim's point, because they probably shouldn't have walked the stage when they did, and in doing that has kind of enabled them to have that feeling that I've accomplished something without truly accomplishing it. Then it's a rude awakening in their 2-year or their 4-year program. Yeah. So it's really looking at that, having a high standard for all students, but then providing them with mental health, all of these things that we can take off the table and say, okay, now you have to prove yourself. So,
great.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Martin may have kind of already stated this, but I want to rephrase it a little bit, and I don't really want an answer tonight, but I'd like to have you kind of tell us as a board what we can do to help you achieve this. Is there something in here that we as a board can focus on? I think, Andy kind of hit on that, but that's really what I wanted to say. Is there something here? And don't need words tonight.
Great.
Thank you, Mr. Colbufo.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Ron.
Yep.
While Mr. Colbufo is sitting down, we now get to officially accept the goals as presented. And again, so just so we understand kind of the layering effect of this, I think it was the last meeting, we accepted and identified the tool that we're going to use to do Mr. Colabufo's performance appraisal later in the year. This is a major part of that, right? So this is some tangible stuff. So it's really the 4 main goals listed above. All the tactical things underneath are what Tom's going to do. But I will make a motion that we accept the superintendent's goals as presented. Can I get a second?
I'll second that.
Second, Mr. McCarthy. Any discussion? All those in favor? It is unanimous. All right, thank you. With that, we are going to move into our open forum portion. The Board of Education has set aside this time as an opportunity for the community to address the board. To allow for public participation, a period not to exceed 30 minutes shall be set aside at each board meeting. Presentation should be as brief as possible. The board will not permit in public session discussion involving individual district personnel or students. Comments should be related to school matters and be limited to 2 minutes. We have 1 blue card this evening, and it is Ms. Lynn Dowler. Good evening.
Hey. I am here representing the CSTA. Mr. Martin, you had approached me this summer, and I know there's a discussion with Mr. Creamer and others, so we took the issue of how and if the CSTA would endorse, the word I'm looking for, would endorse board members in the future. So we did take this to committee, and we talked long and hard about this, and I just wanted to give you a response in a timely manner. So in response to a suggestion submitted by Andy Martin, it is the Central Square Teachers Association position that it best serves the needs of our students, staff, and community to endorse Board of Education candidates. Being an integral part of the school community, people view the CSTA as a reputable and respected source of information. As a result, members of our community turn to us for feedback. Elected school board members serve their constituents similarly to other elected government positions, and endorsements are frequently part of that process. For these reasons, our membership supports our efforts to continue endorsing candidates to ultimately ensure that the needs of our students are met in the most educationally sound manner.
Great, thank you for your response and comments. I'm gonna respond mostly for the benefit of those that might be listening. The entire board knows that this topic came up because I copied you all in on the email, and I was clear to say in there I was not speaking as board president, speaking for myself, my opinions. But I spoke to Ms. Dowler sometime earlier this year. I think it was actually after the opening day.
It was.
New teachers, right?
Yes.
And then in response to Mr. Creamer's comments at either the last meeting or the one before that. And I just want to be clear, it is not about whether or not I or any board member or person running would welcome the endorsement of the teachers. I think we all agree that's a great thing. So my suggestion for the public's benefit was simply that I thought maybe a great avenue would be to put out a position statement for anyone that were running to list their views on certain topics. Certainly no qualms with a teacher endorsement. It's a welcome thing, and so I'm glad it was a good discussion point, and I do appreciate the update.
We did. We had a lot of good discussion about it and kind of rethought how we did things, so that's always important.
Yep.
Thank
Great.
you.
Thanks. All right, and with that, we have two items. Thank you. Two items to follow up on from the last meeting is unfinished business. The first is the approval of the board self-evaluation tool. It is a similar tool to the one we approved for Mr. Colabufo. Hopefully everyone's had a chance to look at it. It's very much in the same vein, same light. It's by the New York State School Board Association. And then assuming that we're going to make a motion in a minute to accept that, but assuming that we approve it, then we would work between now and I think our timeline says January to identify some goals that are, to Mr. Laurier's point, that help Mr. Colabufo achieve his goals. So any questions on the tool or what it involves before we vote on it? All right, so can I get a motion to accept the New York State School Board Association tool for board self-evaluation?
I'll make that motion.
Mr. McCarthy, a second. Mr. Loyer, any discussion?
I do have one comment, so I want to make it after we voted. I just think I'm a huge, I like to do an evaluation on people about this long. And I think going forward after this year, I'll support it. But all I really care about, and I don't say this by any means with any disregard for anything, but that Tom and his team hit those four things. Yes or no? It's up to Tom and his team to present us the data. I don't need to do a lot of writing. So all I'd like to see is yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. That's oversimplifying it, but I think we start asking people to spend 15 hours on an evaluation. I'm not saying we're gonna, but it just gets a little tedious from my perch, and I've done them for 37 years, and the less the better.
Agreed. Any other comments?
Yeah, if we're going to get this done by January, we got 2 months to get this done, so we don't have a lot of time. So it's Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's.
Yep.
So
it will begin at our next board meeting.
Okay.
It will be an agenda item, and it'll be there until we complete it. Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
All right.
That's all I have.
We usually do them the year after, just so.
It's true. This is significantly improved. All those in favor? It is unanimous. And the second piece of unfinished business is field band equipment transportation, and I think Mr. Colabufo.
Yep, and I can say that that's one of Adam Frymeyer's goals, and head mechanic, and it's looking at we just recently met with him, myself and Maureen, because Maureen oversees transportation, and it's taking in what the needs that Ron Haldeman has said are the needs regarding the van bus, but then he's pricing out and looking at different companies on different options that we can do that. When we get more definitive information from him regarding our options, then we can bring that to the board.
Okay. All right. That is it for unfinished business, which brings us to open board forum. So we'll open it up. Anyone have items that they would like to mention or any report outs? I do have some reports simply because we went to a convention recently, but it's not lengthy. So anyone else have anything they want to cover first?
I do not.
Okay. All right, so a couple quick updates. One, I just want to mention one additional name for the home show, field band show, which was, because so many people in the crowd were commenting on it, is one of our students, Jessica Georges, sang the national anthem, and it was absolutely the best rendition you can imagine. So major kudos to Jessica Georges, and hopefully that is not the last time we hear it. There were a number of us that went to a mental health night. What was that? Last Monday? Seems even longer ago. And again, Mr. Colabufo mentioned some of the, points and data points in there. It was good to be educated. It's also a little, frankly, concerning, the numbers. He mentioned about Oswego County being number one for suicide rates, that 1 in 7 students by the time they leave our building, and this is for all of Oswego County, are diagnosed with some form of mental illness. And so it is a major issue, so I'm glad that it's part of our district goals, and looking forward to that. But I also appreciate, we had an unbelievable turnout. I think it was 9 administrators and 3 board members. We probably made up 25% of the total attendance at this night, so it was a good showing, and I appreciate all that time. And then my final thing is simply about the New York State School Board Convention up in Lake Placid. Unfortunately, Mrs. Nickerson had a sick child that she had to attend to, so at the last minute, Mrs. Fishman stepped in. When I say last minute, what did you have? Maybe 11 hours notice or so? So made childcare arrangements and moved heaven and earth to be there. And I know, obviously, people like to joke, oh, Lake Placid, I'm sure you had a great time. We had a great time. We had fun. There was some incredible content. We had really good discussion points. And I just want to mention a couple things we went to, because there's all different kind of tracks you can take, mental health being one, school board relations being another. But one that I thought was particularly impactful was a session about really poverty and rural type school districts and some of the things that they're doing there. I just think we're going to hear a lot more in the coming months from Mr. Colabufo and his administration as a result of this convention. And so I don't want anyone to think that it is kind of going, we did a convention and now we'll never hear about it again. And so when that happens throughout the rest of the year, I may just kind of make a mention and draw it back to that, because I don't want us to think that we are spending money to go to a convention to have fun. That is not it. I thought it was really good, and I don't know if you wanted to add anything, Christy. But
no, I want to mirror Andy's comments. I thought going in, I was a little bit surprised by the invitation because it came so late, but I was incredibly surprised at the same time at the amount of content that, I was it was interesting to see so many different presentations and talk to so many other school board members about issues that kind of plague our district that are, statewide, and school districts that you'd think would be in the wealthier bracket that actually mirror the statistics that we have in our district and the things that they're doing to address those things. And there was a lot of great conversation with the group from Central Square that went about, well, wow, look at what they're doing. How could we implement that here? Would it work in our district? Would the students be receptive? Things like that. There's a lot of things, kind of cutting edge things that are happening in other school districts. Like we attended a program on coding that I thought was incredibly instructive and illustrative of the things that we can do without necessarily having, someone that knows coding and knows every language in the computer system, which I am incredibly foreign to. But, just by, and the impact it's had on students, just that one session was, incredibly interesting. And, the poverty board relations, the presentation, Syracuse City School District actually did an excellent presentation on their PTech and CTE programs, that, where the students either go to BOCES, but they actually brought a lot of it in-house and are now doing it, keeping the students in the classrooms within Syracuse City School District. So it was very eye-opening for me, both as a new board member, as a parent in the district, and, just an interested person, so.
Yeah, that's just one exciting thing is we were kind of debriefing after this. We were talking about things that, like, okay, we have a building, and yes, if city's not going to be utilizing it, let's say after 2017-18, we can utilize the swing space, but we can have a good win-win with the CSDA and the fact that what are some of those programs that we're having over at City BOCES that we ourselves can have here and house here. And looking at it from that mindset, that what outweighs it, the legacy costs of paying the 100% for health care for our workers, or looking at some of these programs that we're sending kids over, and some of them $70,000 a pop. Now, granted, and there is no aid because from BOCES because that gets a whole conversation about stacking and whatnot. But we're really looking at it. Maureen's doing a really good job laying all this out with Teresa Ross. And what are some of these programs that we could have back here and house here within Central Square that could, again, give more opportunities for CTE and not require a bus ride to Mexico. So that's what we're doing.
Great. All right. Anything else for open forum? All right. So with that, item G1 is approval of the resolution authorizing participation in cooperative energy purchasing service for electric. Can I get a motion to accept
I
item
will
G1?
make a motion to accept G1.
Mr. McCarthy, a second?
Second.
Mr. Loyer, any discussion?
Yeah, what is this exactly? Cooperative Energy Purchasing Service is something we do through collaboration with other districts?
Yep, we do this yearly. Do you want to take the mic?
This is essentially how we purchase our gas and our electric. There's a cooperative that we're a part of. We've been a part of it for years. Before I ever even came here, we were a part of it.
Who's in it?
It's basically the bulk of central New York, and it's not just school districts. It's many municipalities and governments. So it's a really large purchasing organization.
So we don't
they
pay
get
12 cents then?
Oh, no.
Okay.
Maybe a half a penny. I mean, it's a huge cooperative.
I was going to say, I quickly just compared even the old rate to
Yeah,
what now, and
yeah.
there's just no comparison.
Yeah, and we just pay a small service charge to BOCES to be a participant. You see it on our budget. It's a budget item. It says a cooperative purchasing.
Okay. Any other questions? All those in favor of accepting item G1? It is unanimous.
Make a motion to accept G2.
I'll second.
Excellent. Item G, I'm just reading G2 for everyone's benefit. It's a best practice again for probably Pearl as well, but also for anyone listening to the meeting. Item G2 is approval of the resolution authorizing participation in cooperative energy purchasing for natural gas. So with that, we have a motion and a second. Any questions? All those in favor? Motion is unanimous. Item G3 is approval of the intermunicipal cooperation agreement for security services.
Make a motion to accept G3.
Mr. McCarthy.
Okay.
Second, Mr. Loyer. Any discussion? All those in favor? It is unanimous. And item G4 is the approval of the single audit report.
Make a motion to accept G4.
Mr. McCarthy,
I'll second.
by Mr. Bedworth. Any discussion? All those in favor? It is unanimous. And item G5 is the approval of the extra classroom activity funds financial report.
Make a motion to accept G5.
Second.
Motion by Mr. McCarthy, second by Mr. Loyer. Any discussion? Being none, all those in favor?
And I believe we already did G6, did we not?
We did do G6. I was preemptive. Thank you.
I'll make a motion to accept.
Hold on one second. Sorry, because so that we don't have to, is it in this one? Sorry, let me look ahead, Tim. What we're tabling. No, okay, H we're good on, sorry.
Make a motion to accept H in its entirety.
Item H, a motion to accept recommendations from the Committee on Special Education and the Preschool Committee of Special Education, as well as approval of donations and approval of disposal of surplus property and approval of substitute bus driver rates.
And I'll second that.
Mr. Bedworth with a second. Any discussion?
What is the delta between the current rate and the new rate? I see the new rate is suggested here, but what's the?
Are you talking about H4?
Yes.
I believe it was $17 an hour. Yep, $17 an hour,
Okay.
and this is $22.60. If you're wondering why, sorry. If you're wondering why it's $22.60, that's what it is when we actually, like a probationary, we hire an actual driver that's on, and we just felt that we know that there's a massive shortage, which is definitely impacting program. It's pushing sports and a lot of things back later because it's a long story about people that bid for this. We can't get the sub to take this. We have to wait till they're done with their run. And so looking at the TAS report that says that we should pay them what we pay our regular drivers, well, that would be the $22.60. And we feel in doing that, we will get more subs.
Okay. Yeah, just making sure it wasn't like 50 cents or something.
No, it's pretty substantial
Yeah,
from 17 up.
Sorry, just give me 1 second. Any other discussion on H? Okay. All those in favor of accepting H? It is unanimous. And which one is it? H. All right, so I'm going to make a motion for item I, which is the personnel, instructional and non-instructional, with the exception of item I, subsection H, which we will table until after executive session, which we will discuss in a moment. So I make a motion to accept item I in its entirety, except item I, subsection.
I'll second. It didn't look like you had your mic on. I apologize.
I have to amend it. I make a motion that we accept item H, not including item H, subsection H and I. H, subsection H and I will wait until after executive
So the
session.
amendment, the motion is to accept with H and I out for now, tabled for now.
Subsection.
I will
H.
second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Because it's not covered. So G is good. Any other questions? Yes, Mr. McCarthy seconded. All those in favor of accepting I, except subsection H and I?
Indigo numbers.
There you go.
And does that affect our executive session with action to follow?
Yes.
Yes, exactly. So, that being the case,
Can I say something?
you can.
I'd like to congratulate soon-to-be new, well, just approved probationary appointment of James Bassesi, business teacher. And now we have husband and wife in the audience who are relatively both new because Mrs. Bassesi was 2 years ago, or no, last year. This is her second year. And now her husband, James Bassesi, replacing Damon Villeneuve. So round of applause. Thank you.
And with that, I will make a motion that the Central Square Central School District Board of Education hereby move into executive session to discuss the sale or lease of property and matters leading to the discipline of 3 particular people with possible action to follow. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Loyer. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, thank you.